It's all good. I'm still getting stuff together over here too. So,
what's your background?
Mine.
Or David? Well, either of you, really.
Yeah. So really, both David and I know each other since high school, basically.
Cool.
I grew up in high school, playing guitar and music and stuff like that, and David playing drums. So I think as soon as I turned 16, I got my license and drove up to his neck of the woods, and we started, kind of jamming together. And
nice.
We're always creating music together. And then, college took place. I went to Florida. He went to ASU, and started collaborating online, things like that. We've always been more of a we've always been super close friends, but we've always been like creating things. So naturally, we went into the business world together, working for recruitment, and then we both split ways and went into different sales organizations. And then we decided to run our own ship together. So,
love that.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I guess. Background, the e-com thing maybe for the last 4 or 5 years in different ways. Obviously, affiliate marketing, CPA stuff, SEO when that was kind of the top thing to do. Now I think the new SEO really is Facebook ads in that sense.
Yeah.
Aren't really looking for, people aren't searching in the same way, right? They're not looking for you in the same way. And I notice that with clients when I look about them, I always ask them, how people find out about you. The Google searches are very low. They're, we have to rely on the fact that we put content into the news feeds of people who are already interested in what we have to show them. Much of them coming to find us, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's well put. It's definitely something that we've kind of bumped into as well. Google Ads or SEO, isn't really a huge piece of our proposals.
Yeah.
Especially, we're working with a lot of small businesses, and it's going to be a really long-term play. It should definitely be a component of their holistic digital marketing strategy where they should follow SEO best practice. But we want to deliver ROI as quickly as we can in a cost-effective manner, and having a several, maybe $500,000, $2,000 retainer just for SEO.
Yeah.
Doing that research when we can run a Facebook ad.
Yeah.
And, and we always, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably know a lot more about this than I do, but it seems like SEO, somebody needs to be already interested in your product or service.
That's the thing.
And Facebook, you can curate a community and curate, a culture that you create that idea. Oh, this is something that's attractive. It's well positioned. This messaging resonates with me.
I like that you use the term long-term. From the Gary V life, which is great. Me too. And yeah, absolutely. I think that to me, I would say it allows you to jab in ways that you can't do with SEO, right? Because you can put out, and even on the live I did yesterday, I mentioned that. I said, I didn't use those terms, but I said, your cold traffic should really be the most native content that you offer. It should be the videos, the value, the just getting people excited about the brand, seeing the lifestyle shoots. And then you can follow up, retarget, warm traffic with your 25% off offers, with your free dinners, with any industry really, right? But I think people miss that component. They try to go cold traffic right with the ad. And I don't think that works anymore in the same way that it used to anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
and just to give some context to people watching on our channel, how I came in contact with Lucah is noticed him on some of the social media marketing feeds and pages, and then pretty early on, I think David had forwarded me your Facebook group, so we joined that pretty quickly. Noticed that he was giving out a ton of free relevant content. Clearly knew what he was doing with Facebook ads, and a lot of the clients that we took on and still have, but early on were more basic ads, awareness for events, pushing out Facebook ads for actual like email collection, things like that. But then we stepped up and we got a client that had a lot higher demanding schedule. So they were releasing 4 or 5 products a week, really heavy on conversions. So I started looking more into Lucah's content, and yeah, definitely helped me like get my stuff together with like Power Editor, developing audiences. So that's how I came across, his programs, his channels. If you guys are struggling at all or just trying to figure out how to navigate through Facebook, I highly recommend joining his group. He gives away a ton of free, valuable content. He's also has some programs that you can use if you want to like really drill down and get a more hands-on experience. But yeah, I mean, really, we wanted to set this up to introduce Lucah to you guys, and then mainly it's a good excuse just to get to know the dude a little bit better. I mean, he seems like a super genuine guy on his channel, and
thanks, man.
Those are the people that we want to resonate with and have in our network.
Absolutely. No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I guess one question I had was, kind of what's your background? I know you talked like some of the technical stuff that you've done, but do you come from like the agency world before this, or has this, how did you kind of get to where you are now?
Good question. I mean, I think that kind of the agency world in some ways. I did work for last year. I was working at an agency, but it wasn't an advertising agency. It was a talent agency. So we represented like actors, film and television, and I was working under an agent. That doesn't really have to do with ecom, but it did teach me a lot about work. She was like very high-driven work person, and so I kind of apply some of that to my ecom stuff now. But I think in terms of just the ecom life, it was really about stumbling across this world, right? It is kind of its own ecosystem, its own community, and the thing that got me there was maybe 5 years ago. The story goes, lost my best friend and had gone through this breakup, and I went online to like seek support, and that's when I first saw the world of products, selling and marketing funnels. And I use these terms now because I know what they mean, but at the time I didn't know what they meant. Yeah. And I found myself, with like people like Michael Fiore and Elliot Hulls, and then Ty Lopez at the time, who was not where he is now, but he was just coming up, right?
Love Elliot Hulls.
And then you start getting into that, and then all of a sudden, if you love it, you're lost, and you think, I want to do this for the rest of my life, no matter how long it takes, and that's where I'm at right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely kind of went down the YouTube rabbit hole, 3-4 years ago, and just got hooked on different personalities, and it's just a great platform to learn pretty much anything that you want to do in life, be it a skill or where you're trying to go. So that's awesome.
And it's still a new industry. I mean, that's what I think people don't really think about, right? Because, I mean, maybe I've been doing it for a while, but only in the last year have I really been able to connect with people like you guys, really been able to connect with other people doing this, because most of the time you talk about it in the world, no one knows what you're talking about. Like most people don't even realize that they're getting served ads in the way they are getting served ads, or what ad content looks like, or how to utilize it, or anything like that, right? And so we're seeing a big transition in terms of what online advertising was, which was like banner and SEO and in-search display and right column and all that stuff, to a whole other value and relationships and the thank you economy, obviously, and things of that nature, right? So and it's still a very young industry. And I was actually saying to my business partner the other day that right now, marketers, we're the main kind of tool inside this world, right? We're selling stuff, we're buying stuff, we're engaging with people. Once other industries jump on this more, it's going to be a whole game changer for everyone. And when every industry realizes that they can leverage all the stuff we're currently doing right now.
Definitely.
Well, I think that was kind of when Lightbulbs went off for Derek and I, when we, initially spun up our agency and started calling people. It became apparent very quickly that people wanted to talk to us about this stuff. And with our, sales experience, and, I shared a similar story, became really interested in e-com, tried to start a couple businesses. A couple things weren't right. There were some compliance issues, but massive, valuable learning experiences. And when we started talking to people about this, it was like immediately we knew that this was a very viable option. And if we could find out ways to take these skills and make it make sense for the type of people we were reaching out to, that the sky was the limit, literally. Even though it's still a very young industry, absolutely, things are changing all the time. I mean, look at the influencer market, which really only came, in the last 2 years where people really started doing that. I mean, I remember following a few early influencers, and now it's this huge thing. So.
Absolutely. I agree on that, especially with that, and I think using influencer marketing is also changing too, right? How we can use it. And for our clients and for ourselves is changing a lot. Yeah. And I even have a client meeting later, and they use a lot of influencers, but it's like even stepping outside the boundaries of what we think, right? Like your person doesn't need to have 200,000 followers in order to get a good return on that. If they have 2,000 followers, but they're getting like 400 or 500 likes for every post, that's a really engaged audience.
Yeah.
But I know on our last call, we told you a little bit about where we're at. I mean, we started just by getting one client, like Dave said, picking up the phone, putting together a proposal, putting in front of somebody, getting somebody to say yes, moving forward, starting on their social media, Instagram, building it up. We started it as more of like a side hustle to our day job. We would be working, 7 to midnight or 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, whatever we had to do, taking meetings before work, after work, lunchtime, and then now we've completely both left our full-time jobs. We're doing this full-time, just working on like scaling the business. I think last time that we talked, it seemed like you're several steps ahead of where we are in our business, which is kind of exciting to hear someone who's a little bit ahead of the curve, just because that's a huge learning opportunity for us. But yeah, I mean, kind of where are you guys at today with your business, and where are you guys headed?
Well, it's interesting. Like my ideal situation is I'm a content creator by identity in that way myself, right? So, and same with my partner. Like we do a lot of different things in that. And so I guess the long-term goal is to have enough capital to, create the type of content we want to on a personal level, and also for the clients. Because I think for me is that, one, this industry is very, actually, I don't want to use the word difficult, but basically a lot of deals need to be on the table in order to get a few, right? It's an industry that involves constant hustle, constant follow-up, constant engagement, because you might talk to a point where there was a point where every day someone was approaching me with a deal, and they would, I'd get a message or something, hey, let's get on this project to get them starting this. Less than 10% of that stuff goes, and learning how to be okay with that has been a huge, I would say, bonus. Realizing that most deals won't go, but saying that you want to be in on them or taking that initiative, I think is really important. So that's kind of been to our lives, and for better or for worse, I think that people still undervalue how important it is. It's hard to get good money. I think that we talk a lot about people, you can get like $10,000 a month. I've found that it's not that simple, especially when you're still small.
Right.
For a lot of different reasons. They don't realize that the online digital marketing is going to be their main push. That's where all of their money should be going, if almost all of it. Mm-hmm. So the people haven't really valued that yet, and so I think that's why it's hard to get those big deals. But over time, yeah, I would love to be able to work with companies that want to tactics. And what I mean by that is that the companies that just want you to run, very traditional ads, maybe they'll pay you, and that's great because then that gives you capital to run your own stuff. But my favorite clients are the ones that I can go to the meeting and say, you should do X, and they're excited. You should look up influencers by geographic location. You should be reaching out via direct message on Instagram. You should be all umbrella platforms with your marketing content. We're talking written, video, audio. Like that type of stuff people aren't really ready for, but those are my favorite clients.
Yeah, 100%.
Only work with those people where you can just say, do this, and they're like, we're down.
Yeah. Definitely.
Instead of the pushback that you get a lot of, people want to give a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
To things they don't know about.
Yeah.
I know that's sort of our goal as well with the clients that we work with. Like we want to be the trusted advisor. We want to, be guiding them through this digital space. And we don't have like a set, $9.97, $19.90, a set cookie cutter package. Like every client that we go to, we're just saying, okay, where are you at? Where are you at with Instagram? Where are you at with Facebook? Where are you at with your website? Do you have an email strategy? How are you getting customers today? What has worked before? And then just taking a more consultative approach and then just really finding where the white space is and then filling that and just kind of guiding them through that. So that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Dave, if you had any questions for Lucah at all.
I mean, I would just wholeheartedly agree with that, and I think that Ty Lopez's program is kind of what brought us together here. But in the groups that I see, go after a specific niche. They're going to push on fashion, fitness, high-end luxury items, this, that, the other thing, which is great. We found our success going after ideal customer profile in terms of the people that are going to be buying our services, and it's somebody who gets it, who is not afraid to, take risks, calculated risks, but they understand the value of digital media, digital marketing. They know that's where the world's moving, and they either no longer have time to handle it themselves, or they have no idea where to start. And that's where we come in. And honestly, I think that every major client that we have today is 100% that. We'll talk to other people and we'll try to, we spend time talking to them. It's opportunistic business. It might go, right? You made the phone call, you got them on the hook, and it might close. So we're gonna work it if we can. But when you're not trying to train them on, the value of digital media and so on and so forth.
I can recognize when I've come to the point too, like over many, many conversations that I've had with people through the group and through online, is when you've got a shit client. When, like people will hit me up and they'll say, can you partner with me on this person? And now I have a list of questions that I need to ask them, because I used to just say yes. And then, there's all these things that come up, right? So I hit them with a bunch of questions. I need to know, like, what are they selling? What's the goal? How much are they willing to spend on marketing? How much are they willing to spend on a retainer? I go through all my stuff. And if they come back, like, they want to, sometimes the person will say, they want to see if it works first. So they're going to put like $100 in. To me, that's the first red flag, usually on a long list of red flags. Because the value that, as I said before, digital should be your only play. Like, ditch the print, ditch the commercials, ditch all that, and let's just really focus and reach more people for less money. And when I say less money too, I think that the industry changes all the time, right? And so be able to do with a certain amount of dollars you can't do anymore, but you can still do incredible results for as much as you can possibly spend. That's usually how I pitch it to people. And, how much do you want to make? I truly believe you should be willing to spend half on digital. If you want $1 million business, you should at least be willing to spend $500,000 on advertising, on digital content marketing, not just advertising, but like producing video content, producing written, paying for influencers, really building out the umbrella of what's going to be your, for lack of a better word, the funnel of your entire term funnel. What's the value ladder? Where are we starting people on the journey of your business? And what's the last move you want them to make, right? And so people need to be thinking about more of that stuff and less about the immediate sale. You may not sell right away, but you're buying data. Say, this is our audience, and you can't do that with the billboard. You can't do that with the commercial. You can't do that with anything else. It's the only move.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I know that also when we chatted, I mean, it sounded like, in terms of like the clients that you have, we're still ramping up and we still have more room to take on more people. We're definitely busy, but it sounded like you're getting to that point where your time and your day is really taken up, and you're about fully taxed of like how many clients can you take on. I mean, this is a problem that we're aggressively chasing, and once we get there, we haven't gone into great detail on it yet, but really we're just trying to network with more and more people that do similar things to us and that have skill sets like ours, so we can work together and scale. I mean, what's sort of your ideas and that you're formulating to actually take it to the next step, or like scale this beyond just the Lucah hand? I mean,
I just have started to think about this, and the question becomes, there's a few things, right? I mean, what's great about having resources, people would reach out to me, I'll do private consults, I'll do all of those things. And literally it's just been this last month that I've started to think, okay, how can we build a different type of relationship so that I can still help people, but also possibly like take some work off the table? Because there's the two types of clients, right? There's the ones that pay you just the retainer that you can run ads for and do all of that stuff, but they may not have the money to implement a very developed funnel. And then there's the ones that that probably have the money, but they don't really want to have those marketing conversations with you. I think it's more work. It's more work to build out a really incredible marketing system than people think it is. That's really what I've come to realize. And so that's really where I would need the support. For not just for ideas, but also for implementation. And so if I could get to a place where I could take what I know and about the actual technical of the ads and show somebody else how to do it who already has a little bit of experience, that would be my ideal situation. Because then they can still be learning, we can be chatting, but then I'm not actually there at the computer, banging out the ad sets, I suppose. Not that I don't like doing that, but
yeah. Are you more into long term? Are you seeing yourself more being sort of the quarterback and actually designing the strategy, like having these clients say, okay, you have no funnel in place, we need a hook, we need this ad, you're gonna need
100%.
that, and then actually having tacticians or practitioners fulfilling that kind of under you?
It's tough though, right? Because there's a level of trust involved.
Yeah.
Where you want to watch, like, I wouldn't want to think of myself as like a micromanaging boss, because like I definitely feel, not that it would be a boss, but I definitely feel that way. I think there's some complicated things in the industry though too, because I've been asked to jump on with people, and then they want to do non-competes, and like I don't know where I stand on that. From a sense of, well, one, it caps you out at a certain price point, so I wouldn't do it because I like having the freedom. But when I bring people on, it's something that I think about, right? You want to be able to, or I guess this is two sort of things I'm talking about. One is really just the trust that has nothing to do with the non-compete thing. That's just about the practicing of the ads, saying we should run it like this. And how do you then get somebody to run it in the way that you want it run? I would still have to go in and check it out, right? From a knowledge perspective. And then the other side of the trust thing is, how do you deal with them having their own clients, which I think can work out. My goal, my ideal would be, you can have as many clients as you want, and we can just consistently be working on all of them. But what about you? What do you guys think about it?
Yeah, I mean, we're still developing that as well. Something that's interesting to me is that we've recently, and I think we talked about it too, we've recently started partnering with a much larger marketing firm. They're a co-founder situation, and I really almost think the way that they onboarded us is the way we'll probably onboard the first person. Find a like-minded individual that's maybe, a few steps or a few years behind us that's, looking to build up their portfolio, but just needs, different industry and client experience, starting them on a small micro level project, developing them on that one specific task, kind of handing them off, letting them get their feet wet with actual client interaction on it, and then, slowly add more and more responsibility till either they outgrow us and do their own thing, or, I think that'd be a good starting point. I mean, just trying to mirror because that's basically what this company did with us. I mean, they're giving us one client. We just added on a second client from them 2 days ago. So we're just kind of more the hands in the dirt, running the ads, and developing the audience strategy. They're working on a much more macro level with them, building out their websites, dealing with their email funnels, all that kind of higher level strategy, and we're sort of in the dirt. So that may be a way that we'll sort of mirror what they've done with us to somebody else.
I would love a ClickFunnels guy. I'm just thinking out, like, I do ClickFunnels, I run them myself, but I think it's really about figuring out, exactly as you said, filling out those places, right? And on top of that, recently been working with a seller, and that's been it's a very new relationship, but she's like, I'll do some selling if you can do the ads and everything like that. And again, but it puts me in the same position, right? Which is still needing that extra support of someone who is like, I have a business partner. He's great. He does great creative. He's more like a very creative person. So that visual element to it. And also we make other projects, but someone from the SMMA world who really, they just want to practice ads and they have a bit of experience, and then maybe I can just bolster them up a bit.
Yeah. I think you have a great pool to pick from. I mean, just from your own community that you've built as well. I think, you can find a few people that are active in your group and say, hey, do you have an hour a day to dedicate to something like this? And maybe just bring them on kind of on an ad hoc basis. That could be something for you.
It's coming. It's coming. The thing about running a group is that, like, you have your eyes out from the very beginning. My eyes were out. Who's stand out. Who's jumping in. Who's sharing information. Who are my regulars, and I know them. Whether or not they're in that place where they could take on that type of relationship, I'm not sure, but it's coming. It's definitely, and I can sense that it's coming because. Those relationships are getting deeper, even for the live that I did. This is a good plug, actually, for people who want to get more opportunities in e-com. We like it, and not saying that I consider myself, I'm on my own scale, but there's people that I look up to that are mentors to me. And if you want to be recognized in a space or have those types of opportunities, be there, engage, put out information, ask questions. And I'll give you an example of that. When I just did this live, build your own case study live, where I was like, come to this live, I'll walk you through the marketing. I'm going to build a case study right there. We built it. We sold within 24 hours, one product. So success on that regard. When I was building out the program and I was figuring out how I was going to do it, there's this one guy in my group who tags me in everything, like, if to help this person out, help that person out, is always being like, Lucas dope, basically, and hasn't even asked me for anything. Yeah. So I reached out to him and I said, I'm building this thing up. Do you mind if I run some stuff by you and you can come to it, basically, free of charge? and he was really helpful. And we worked on it for like an hour. And so that's just an example of how, you know, we do recognize people. We recognize people, and if you want to be recognized, it's important to be visible.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned your partner. I know a question that we get a lot is, you know, how do you guys manage the business relationship and things like that? I mean, a big thing that we talk about a lot is that we balance out each other, I think, well. Like, a lot of my strengths are, you know, polar opposites of David's strengths, and then we also share like a lot of core competencies that are super important to growing the business. Like, sales is a big thing that we both get and we both share. But, you know, as far as like the creative, like I do a lot of video work. You know, I am very visual. I do get hands-on with the ads. You know, Dave's super good with like project management and like delegating and like getting tasks done, contracts, things like that. How do you guys sort of balance your business and your world just between two different personalities, two different skill sets?
Absolutely. I think there's a couple things. One, you know, our visual is always on point. You know, we really have a similar notion. Super loud on my side, but we have a similar notion about how things should look. And so, or how we want them to look, just on a visceral level. So that really helps in a branding way, because I'm super brand guy. Like, the more I've been in this world, the more I've started to love branding as a concept, marketing as a concept, and your love for it just continues to ripen the more you engage in it. So that's one thing that we definitely have. And I think that another way that we work together is through support. You know, you can't be mad at the same time. That's a big thing that we like try to do. So like, if one person's kind of freaking out, it's important to kind of put it in perspective in both ways. And I think that keeps things under control in some respect. And I think it's an important dynamic to develop with people, because there's times when you'll both need support, and figuring out how to give that and get it is important.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, even just not keeping each other in check of freaking out, but maybe even being too high on for some particular client or something like that. It's good to just sort of level it out. Like, okay, well, you know, we're at this point, actually, you know, let's get it together. Let's move forward. But yeah, that's yeah. And I definitely appreciate having David on the team. I mean, you know, as a partner, I think that balance definitely helps, just to keep you in check and keep you focused, keep you in line.
The more long-term you think too, the easier it kind of gets to deal with certain things. Because if you think, okay, cool, this is the next, you know, 24, 36 months or whatever, or 5, 10 years down the line, those wins become, those wins are very, all the wins are very exciting, but you know, that there'll be more. And then when things fuck up, it's the same. Yeah. You know, you're like, a setback, but both are kind of long-term, require long-term thought to really keep yourself, I feel like, engaged in what you're doing, to not, you know, burn out. I think that you have to maintain a level of excitement through good and bad. And I obviously have moments too where I struggle, but I think that the most important part is showing up and saying, I'm gonna learn more. I'm going to continue to work at this. I'm going to continue to develop my knowledge, develop my skills, and regardless of what happens, that's I think the main thing. Reaching goals, if you're setting them and you're trying to reach them, it doesn't even matter what happens after that, right? And that's kind of kept me keep continuing to, you know, work 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that, and I think that a huge part of that is continuing education or finding new. And that's a huge thing I took from Ty's program, was because of the way that it was spaced out, and it was being released as Derek and I were fighting for willpower after 5 o'clock every night. You know, we'd go to work all day, crush it, you know, blah blah, and then come home and be like, oh yeah, like now we need to go and deliver results for like these clients that we actually want to be working with. And then we got to the point, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, where we quit our jobs, and all of a sudden we had all this time that we wanted to put into the business. And then it wasn't a long period of time, but it was about a week or a week and a half where we just kind of sat back and enjoyed it a little bit. And then we had to go and find that sense of urgency again. I mean, how do you kind of keep yourself motivated on a daily basis when, deadlines are sneaking up and all that?
Yep. I think, again, the whole leaving the job thing. So I left my job in November 1st of last year, and Mitch left his job in around April of this year. And I think that one thing that we both did was, we were actually just talking about this before I jumped on the call, that when you've come from you have an advantage when you come from a 9-to-5 environment, because you know what it takes. What you need to do is run your life like that, except you just have way more freedom and it's way better. And you don't have to go to the office. But essentially, you have to keep that structure. You don't let the structure slip. That was a big thing for me, And because I had just come out of not just a 9-to-5, but a commission environment 9-to-5, that understand what it takes to be in a commission lifestyle world, right? Where your whole business relies on you showing up, right? And so instead of getting down and out, because it can be, sometimes I'm on my feed first thing in the morning, I get super overwhelmed. So I'm just seeing ad after ad after ad, and this person's results and that person's results. It's hard not to feel like, but you just say, okay, well, I really only have one option, and that's to get to my to-do and start chipping away at some of those things. I think it's really important to call your day ended at one point, or to have the option to keep working. Like for me, 6, but I'm like, if I want to watch a movie or do something else or go out for drinks, I totally do. If I want to still be on my phone while I do that, answering emails, answering questions, jumping on calls, sure. But it's not mandatory. So making those kind of lines for yourself, I think is important. Because I think people get caught up. They're like, oh, I worked until 2 a.m. on this thing. I'm getting all this done. I'm like, well, not if you slept until noon the next day. You're getting less done than everybody else. And your mind isn't even in the right state, right? So if you're going to push it like that, if you're going to work hours of the morning, I think you still have to, you still have to get up basically and continue the work. And the hours that I think are really crucial to obviously get in. But yeah, I think one thing about maintaining is that you basically need to, at least this was my experience, you need to start working every day. And regardless, that's the only thing. You don't have to do anything specific, but create an environment where you can work every day. If that means going to a coffee shop and just being there for 5 hours, even if you do nothing, that's way better than saying because then if you don't do that, what ends up happening is you say, I'll work when I feel like it. And as soon as you start the whole I work when I feel like it thing, you won't feel like it half the time. So setting up that structure, you show up, even if you're fucking around the whole time, at least you've created that space for yourself where you say, this is what I'm doing. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting moving from a 9-to-5 when you're required to be there. And I think that something that helps me is I'm in this, large space in my apartment complex that no one really uses, that Derek and I kind of uses, conference room vital. And of walking somewhere other than your apartment or, going and getting a coffee. Derek and I just recently started using this thing called a self-journal. And we're very much in the experimental phases with it, but basically it's setting your goals, your tasks, for, a 13-week period, and then having micro goals that you remind yourself of on a daily basis. And I think that we're both very goal-oriented people. We both come from very commission-focused sales roles in our past lives. And, being on the same wavelength, and, from a time management perspective too, what are our goals? What does this business do for us? What is the end game? What are we going to do? What can each of us contribute towards that for each other? on a daily basis, and when we hit that, what's next? And kind of like what you said with 10 opportunities at the same time and one going, we no matter how many meetings we set yesterday, no matter how many meetings we have today, no matter how many opportunities we have, we always try to keep new stuff coming in at all times, because if you lose something, at least you have those new opportunities, the new excitement, the new stuff on the calendar. So
yeah, I mean, when I worked for this woman, it was hectic. Like, she was, nice and a tyrant all at the same time. I mean, it was a very intense situation. And one thing that I've learned from her that I saw was that, so I was her assistant, she was the front runner trying to get the jobs, right? And so when you're trying to book actors for work, you have to be on the phone, you're calling casting, there's more than just go to this audition. If you want to be a good agent and you want to make a lot of money, which she did make a lot of money, I mean, she hustled all the time. And one thing that really helped was that I did a lot of the day-to-day and she did a lot of stuff on the phone. And so it was kind of like we were one person. It was a very well thought out, strategy that wasn't spoken of, but it just ended up being that way. Mm-hmm. And what I really got to see was the main thing to kill it in your career. Well, there's two main things. You got to find a way to stay hype as much as possible, even when shit sucks. Like, you've got to maintain excitement, and that can take a long time to develop, staying in that in a peak state often. And second is that you have to put yourself in the firing line. If you're not at the desk, like for us in our industry, if you're not at the desk and you're not on Facebook and you're not talking to people, it's just not going to happen. You have to put yourself in that prime situation. And so that's what I saw her do all the time. She came into the office, the phone rings, she's there, she answers it. You wait for the business. You're developing that relationship, you're reaching out to people. And so, but it's really that structured environment.
Yep.
That says, this is where the deals are going to happen. And if they don't happen today, then I make no money. I make no money tomorrow. You could have $1,000 day.
Yeah, 100%. I know just something that we've been focused on lately is, we've been in sort of this ebb and flow where, we have a rush of client onboard. I feel like, the onboarding process is, where a lot of the market analysis comes in, and the strategy and a lot of the hands-on work and getting people on the right projects. And then those accounts start maintaining, and then, level of effort goes down, and then we start ramping up hardcore, cold calling, setting up meetings and things like that. Something that we've been doing is that journal has just helped us a little bit put everything in perspective. So when we write out our daily planner the night before, we're very intentional about what our goals are. Both of us right now, our next step is we want to be doing 21K a month. That's a realistic goal that we both think we can hit. That's going to, put us in a good financial position. And then, we can really start scaling from there. Another goal of mine is our YouTube channel, start building that up. And then, my personal health goals as well. So yeah, we just rack out our whole day, kind of 6 a.m. to 9 o'clock at night. I mean, these are kind of our notes, that we go through. We just write it out, like, this is when I'm making cold calls. This is when I have a meeting. This is when I'm doing Facebook ads. Like, it's just really helped out a ton. So we're still experimenting with that, but it's just kind of keeping us like, okay, what do I need to do at this time? Because otherwise, I feel like you can just get in the rabbit hole of, optimizing an ad or, whatever.
No, absolutely. The whole goal thing is really key. The list the night before, really important. If I can't do it the night before, I'll totally do it when I wake up. The other thing that I've realized too is that, like, I try to not, when I overload my list, I only get some of it done. So if I'm having a day where I feel like I want to feel more accomplished just on a mental level, I will shorten my list.
Yep.
And because then I will just end the day feeling like I accomplished 10 times more. Because things take longer than you think they will. A lot of times, like, oh, I'll put up this ad, and sometimes it takes short, and sometimes it takes long, or sometimes you run into technical issues or whatever, right? And so something that you might schedule an hour could take you 2.
Right.
Yeah, and that's part of too. I think that Derek and I've had a lot of conversations about like the type of entrepreneurs that we want to be. And I think that really, like right now it's a lifestyle thing, and eventually it might be, you know, a financial play where we structure the business for different, you know, ways, you know, future growth, so on and so forth. But, you know, health and wellness, I think, is something that we neglected to get to this point to a certain extent. I mean, Derek was up nights. I was up the ass crack of dawn. You know, I was traveling a lot for work. I'd stay up in hotel rooms when I was traveling for business. And that health and wellness piece is like goal number 3 for me and for Derek. And if we can just hit that goal first thing in the morning, or do, you know, something that contributes to that, even if everything with the business goes to hell, at least we have, you know, that win, and having those different, you know, healthy relationships with people in your life, so on and so forth. If you have a really bad day at the office, even if it's, you know, in your apartment, you can feel good about yourself and what you did.
Absolutely.
Even if you don't hit the whole list. So.
And I think, you know, juggling relationships is a really difficult. I'm single right now, and to be honest, I wouldn't have half the things that I have right now if I was not single. I think I've been in relationships most of my life. Like, I've had a girlfriend basically my entire life, and I see a huge difference. Huge. That doesn't mean it's not hard, and it doesn't mean, you know, you're not sad sometimes, but ultimately, like, if you're single, you have so much more time, 1, and 2, relationships, you know, there's a lot of relationships to juggle outside of having like a partner like that, right? And so I look forward to the day where like I can balance a girlfriend again and work, but right now the work goals have completely dominated, and accepting that, you know, and not feeling like I need to mentally fight that or anything, and just really accepting that this is chosen right now, and that I'm actually really happy with that, you know, has taken some time, and I still work at it, but ultimately you can always find room for relationships in your life, but you can't always put 100% of yourself on the table, especially if you have a family, you have kids eventually, you know, costs go up. You know, you said $21,000, like that's a goal of mine too. I would absolutely on the table. And it's funny though, but the more money I feel like you make, the more you realize that you need a lot of money to really reach the goals that I think we all have, you know, because even with 10K a month, you realize, man, that goes fast. Running a business, that goes fast. And I have very little overhead and very little support, and still it would be nice to 3, 4, 5 times that, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, with like relationships, like you mentioned, I've been there myself, where I've had relationships that just kind of just like suck away all the time, and it's like there's no freaking way I'd be able to do this and deal with that at the same time. But you know, a cool thing is like, you know, I've got into a relationship in like the last 6 months, kind of right as I've started this business too, and it hasn't taken away my time, which is cool. Like, I can basically devote myself as if I was single to this business, but still have that support at the same time. So that's a cool thing. You're in a position where you just gotta, you know, somebody's gotta fit into what you got going on, rather than,
and that's a reflection of her, or whoever you're with. You know, that's a big reflection of your partner in that sense, is that because they have to be chill. You know, they have to be able to not feel like work versus you, because I think that's the hard part, right, about the relationship, is that most people are taught through movies, through culture, through all of that they need to compete with work, that it's somehow, if you're working, you're choosing to not be with them. And I've actually ended relationships because of that recently, like since the business has started to go up. If I'm starting to date somebody and I feel like they're getting into that headspace with it, you know, oh, take a break, like if you can, you know, I don't call you at your job and say, hey, if you can just leave the office, you can just like, you know, exactly. I think the entrepreneur thing, people have a really hard time taking it seriously.
I would absolutely agree with that.
It's like, fuck you.
Yeah, even my family, you know, they're like, oh, can you? I'm like, it's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. Like, no, like I might be in my apartment with like nobody above me that's going to know that I'm gone, but there's work that needs to be done. And, but yeah, my girlfriend's the same way. I mean, she was like, you need to quit your job. Like, you need to do this. Like, this is your thing. And, let me know if there's anything I can do. And really likes Derek a lot. And, he was a big part of that. I think that
his girlfriend helped us get a freaking client.
It was a bad idea.
She helped us. Helped our business.
His girlfriend, what?
She literally she referred one of our marquee clients to us.
Yes, totally. I'm still quite tight with an ex who's actually a client as well, and she refers clients too.
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So absolutely. But everyone, it's like, what's funny though is that when stuff starts popping off for them, they're all of a sudden like, now I don't have the time.
Oh yeah.
Like when it's you that's doing all this stuff, it's like, oh, blah blah blah. It's just it's just hilarious like that.
Yeah. So that caught me off guard too when all of a sudden I was doing this full time and I'm like, okay, all I want to do is this. Literally, like, I'm gonna be a ghost for the next. It's like, don't expect me to be around. Like, I'm gonna be at my apartment, locked in a room, hustling and making this happen. And then all of a sudden, everybody's like free for lunch and wants to, this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, okay, you need to actually take this seriously though. Like, it's a huge time investment. And I think that it's something that everybody wants, but a lot of people, they don't have the discipline to say no to everybody. And that's where it falls off the rails.
Honestly, like anyone who says they want to, and this is the thing, people want, obviously they want all this. They want the work from home life. They want the freedom. They want the money. They want that happy. They want it all. The wealth, all that stuff. I mean, stuff that we are going for. People want that, but it's so predicated on your ability. Honestly, one thing: can you still work when you feel like shit? That's really the only thing. And like I learned, like I smoked for like 10 years, and quitting smoking taught me a lot about that too. It's like, people say they're quitting and then they all have a cigarette, right? It's like, no, that's not quitting.
Yeah.
You not smoking for like a month and then smoking isn't quitting. Quitting is when you want to smoke and you don't do it. It's like, I feel like, if you're really dedicated to your hustle and you really are realizing that it's long term, you're looking at 5 years, 1, and 2, can you do it when things are really bad? Like I had it's where you have to like really show up and find those things that continue to push you. Yep. And, I even had an experience, and this happens often, right? I even had an experience like that the other night. The night before the live that I did, was like kind of in a bad mood about something, and that's a whole other random thing. But anyway, I was in a bad mood about something, and I had this moment where I was like, okay, I have to. You realize over time, if you show up every day and you work every day, good or bad, that you need to find those things that change your state, that change your mental state. Because I just said to myself, I said, well, you have an hour of work to do. So, and you can't really just say, I'm upset, I'm not going to do it, because you have to do it. You have this presentation to do. So I turned on I actually turned on a keynote, like a marketing keynote. I put my head down on my desk, and I just was like, get in the zone, man. Get in the zone. There's just no excuse, right? I have time off. I go out drinking. I have my friends. I do all that type of stuff, right? But when the shit hits the fan and you aren't in the best mood, sometimes you still have to work. And I think that that's what people aren't willing to do. Honestly, like, and when people talk about how they want all these types of things, I say, okay, yeah, like, but are you willing to actually sacrifice on an emotional level, on a physical level, on a personal level, just for a little bit, just for like 24 months, And I think a lot of people aren't, because it's hard, and I get that, and that's why, because it is hard. That's just the plain truth.
Yeah, I think that, to your point earlier too, it's kind of an interesting opposite side of the coin, where coming from a 9 to 5, you're at a huge advantage going into entrepreneurship, because you know what structure looks like, what contracts, what you have this experience, but also it's really easy to get very comfortable in that, and that structure is also what can keep you in that life forever. I mean, when Derek and I decided to do this full time, it was, he had another opportunity to go and interview for if he wanted. And that was honestly part of, and Gary Vee says it very well, that world will welcome us back with open arms when, or hopefully never, right? But if all goes to hell and we want to, throw in the towel and this isn't for us, I mean, it's not going to be hard to go back to that world. It's incredibly difficult to leave that world, though, and to make those decisions. And especially, if you're in relationships, to have support from people who are self-confident enough to support you through that. So, yeah, I mean, just the discipline, it's a special kind of person.
It does take a special kind of person. And I think that I think that one thing, if we're talking about mental shifts, is to recognize that you have to actually create, again, about coming from the structure, you are at that advantage. Because when you have a job, you have to go. When you feel, even if you've just, whatever's happened, you basically have to go, right? Yeah. And that's what people hate about it. But the thing is, entrepreneurship is the same. The only thing that's really amazing about it, well, there's a number of things. You get to do what you love, even though you're going to have bad days regardless, and you're going to sometimes hate it. You get to schedule it around other elements of your life, cooking, shopping, laundry, the things that when you're in a 9-to-5, you just hate your life because you can't fit that stuff in. You can do it whenever you want. And then also, there's no ceiling to the money you can make, which is scary and also awesome at the same time, right? It's you have a great opportunity to be able to raise your income, but when you're raising your income, work comes with that. And I think that the whole raise your income, work less thing, I mean, it is real, but I think it takes longer than people think it does.
Yep.
Yeah, a little unlock that I had last week is I think I was in my car and I was just sitting there just thinking about the transition that we've gone through from that 9-to-5 to what we're doing now. I was like, what was I scared of? Was I really afraid of? I mean, you're in Canada, but was I afraid to pay for my own health insurance? Was that fucking it? It's not that big of a deal, I mean, we came from a sales background anyways, so nothing was guaranteed. I mean, even when you have a job, nothing's guaranteed. Company can come and just lay you all off and you're gone and you're starting over again.
And then you're damaged goods.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, there is we look for stability in everything, but ultimately nothing, even your 9-to-5, even your family, even your relationship, even your everything. None of it is you can really, really say, okay, for sure, this is forever, straight up, I'll have this and it'll stay exactly the same forever and ever and ever, right?
Yeah, it won't.
Yeah. I think the first 2 weeks after I was doing this full time was the most calm, quiet headspace I've been in probably since I entered the workforce, because it was all completely up to me and Derek, who I trust, to make it happen. There was no crazy, marketing team had this idea. Then all of a sudden, there's this paradigm shift and, the numbers change and the targets change. And, all of a sudden you're on a new account, new client, whatever. And it's now I'm confident in my abilities and in Derek's abilities. And that's, why we decided to make this shift. And because of that, my stress levels have plummeted. It honestly freaks me out a little bit at first.
And I have that stuff too. I have stressful moments, but the recovery rate is way faster. I think because I rate things on that. It's it's not about not freaking out. It's not about not having bad days. It's not about not getting stressed. It's just how quickly can you recover, and how much mental strength can you have in terms of making recovery a priority, not beating yourself up because you had a bad day, but okay, cool. Problem, solution-based. Let's switch to a solution-based mentality. And so I try to do that sometimes too. And I praise myself more for my recovery rates than really anything else. Because I've seen those get shorter and shorter with time. Maybe 5 years ago, you're angry for 3 days. It's all right, let's get angry for 5 minutes. and try to like come back from that. I think that that's more important. But what you were saying about the 9 to 5 talks, all that stuff, the stress levels. So me and my business partner Mitch, we went to see Dunkirk in IMAX on Saturday.
Nice.
And amazing experience. Totally dope. Again, one of the benefits of working, you know, you can go do that stuff, but it happened to be on a Saturday that we decided to see it because it came out on a Saturday. We go in the IMAX room. It's this huge space immediately. And I've been out of a 9 to 5 now for like a year. The vibe, I was like, right, all of these people, most of them, I can just tell the 9 to 5 people. I can just tell because you're pissed about everything. Everything is getting like, hey, like everything is so sensitive. Like I'm not saying that everyone feels that way, but I think when you're out of it, you're not going into an office every day with people that hate themselves, and you're getting to work out more often. You just generally feel better about your life, in general. And then when you're exposed to, you know, Saturday and with all these people who are working 9 to 5s, and it's like, right, yeah, on a visceral level, that makes people more uptight. I just genuinely believe it, because when I was in a 9 to 5, I was that person too. I was stressed out. I was upset. I was fighting with people. I was causing drama over things that are literally not important at all. And one thing about entrepreneurism that I've really realized, literally little should matter. Most things don't. And Mitch helps me a lot with that too. We always come back to that. When we find ourselves getting hung up on something, your main leverage, your main ROI that you can give yourself is to care less about almost everything that's not forwarding what you're doing. And you realize that quite quickly, because when I was in 9 to 5, small little things setting me off.
Yep.
You know, and it's like, now I can't afford to do that. And a lot of my friends we talk about certain things. They wish, you know, they'd love to be able to leave their 9 to 5s or anything like that. But then what they're talking about on the phone, I'm like, well, the first thing you need to do is stop caring about any of the shit that you're saying right now.
Complaining.
Because, like, as long as you're in that headspace of focusing on what you're telling me of all this thing, and then my mom said this, and then like my partner did this, and it's like, okay, leave your relationship, like just get out of all of that. If it's really, obviously the mom thing is something else, but if your relationship is causing you this much drama, leave it. If your job, like any of that type of stuff, right? It's okay that the food went bad. It's okay that you left the fridge open, and like all that stuff needs to be lower on the, you can't have that be your 100, because when you're in an entrepreneurial world, there are moments that are very intense.
Yeah.
So making sure recognizing it on a scale, where does this fall on the scale of what should be cared about, I think is a skill that is important to recognize in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd 100% agree with that.
Yeah, that's super important. I mean, you're wasting your mental, your
You
mental
can't.
capacity. You're just wasting it on frivolous things that aren't going to be driving you to your goals. And, the food went rotten, or the guy cut you off, or, whatever, but what's it going to do for you,
Yeah, I like, when you see people, someone backs up into them, like in public, or steps on their shoe, and they're like, hey, like, watch where you're going. I'm like, woo, I don't even want to know, like, what's good with you, man, because that's a level where it's going to be very hard to accomplish anything.
Yeah.
Want, and that's probably why you're so upset, because you're not accomplishing the things you want to accomplish, but that attitude will never get you there.
Yeah.
I know whenever we've done a deal or anything like that, there's just a whole different feeling associated with that. Before, if we got a new client for the company that we worked for, it was like a relief. There was like all this pressure, and it was like as soon as we did something good, it was like, all right, this is going to keep me around for a little bit longer, you know what I mean? Or this will keep me, looking good for the boss or whatever. But now when something good happens, it's just like weird. It's like a whole nother feeling. It's like, wow, that's awesome. Like, I'm super excited for like the potential of this opportunity, like where it can go in the process. And there's no like, oh, thank God, we got a client, like, it's just that just doesn't happen anymore. It's just like, okay, great. I'm excited for this relationship. Let's see where it goes. And just a whole mental shift. So,
and the whole equity piece of our business, I mean, every client we get right now is a case study, or a testimonial, or work experience. It's building into this this, you know, behemoth that we want it to be. And, you know, at the end of the day too, it's personal. It's something that, I mean, it's just, I guess I haven't gotten over the novelty of, you know, processing payroll for ourselves and just having every, you know, check that we cut be directly to us, and, you know, have the value of it be, you know, 10 times what, you know, my previous commissions were.
Oh yeah, I'm super pumped. We get a direct deposit tomorrow from ourselves. It's going to be fucking awesome.
You know, literally from this idea that Derek and I had, you know, this is where it is. And I just don't think that we're ever going to take that for granted. And I think that's like the biggest piece of entrepreneurship is it's this huge valuable thing that you did. Like, it was nobody else's idea. It wasn't a job posting on Indeed. I mean, it was you taking action, and whether it's successful or it's a failure, it's something nobody's ever going to be able to take away from me. And that was my justification when part of my justification when I quit. It's like, this is not going to go away. And if I don't pursue this opportunity, like every job I ever work, I'm going to be that dude who's pissed, you know, that someone stepped on his shoe, because I'll never know what I was really capable of. And if I could, you know, do that. And it turns out I'm pretty decent at it so far, and Derek is too. And we're just happy we did it. So
no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, sick, man. Luca, it was a pleasure, you know, chatting with you. You know, hopefully we can do this again. It was cool jamming with somebody that's, you know, trying to get somewhere that's, you know, crushing it, that's super smart. So any of you guys listening, check out his channel, join his Facebook group. I'll link everything down in our description below. And yeah, definitely check him out. He's an awesome dude.
I appreciate it. This was such a good time. Hit me up anytime. We'll continue to chat.
Cool, man.
Cool. Thanks, man.
See ya.
Good to meet you. Good to chat. Thanks.